Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Q and Review, that's @ CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com, that's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, August 22. Mikel Arteta suggests stopwatch may be needed for consistency. Report by Martin Macmillan. Mikel Arteta may have loved Arsenal's narrow win at Crystal Palace, but believes a stopwatch may be needed to iron out inconsistencies in time-wasting after Takehiro Tomiyasu fell foul of the rules. The Gunners won 1-0 in South London, as Martin Odegaard's second-half penalty proved the difference. Japan defender Tomiyasu was sent off at Selhurst Park, picking up a soft yellow card for a foul on Jordan Ayew just 7 minutes after being cautioned for perceived time-wasting at a throw-in. The new remit for officiating this season has called, among other changes, for a clampdown on time-wasting, but Arteta believes the timing did not add up on Tomiyasu's booking. Asked about the rule changes, the Spaniard replied, "For me, it is not an issue. The referee makes that call, and we are consistent with that. They explained it. The only thing we are asking for is consistency. If not, we need to play with a stopwatch to understand what is and what is not." Arteta did not agree when told Tomiyasu had waited 23 seconds to take the throw-in before being cautioned, replying, "It wasn't. I think it was 8 seconds. We might have to play with a stopwatch. This is the standards." Despite the red card, Arsenal made it 2 wins from 2, following on from their opening day victory over Nottingham Forest. Evening Times Sport, August 22. Celtic rocked by injury ahead of Old Firm clash. Report by David Irvin. Celtic have been rocked by an injury to central defender Make Norocki. Brendan Rodgers now faces a defensive crisis ahead of matches against St Johnstone and Rangers. The Scottish Sun report Polish defender Norocki has picked up a hamstring knock during Sunday's 1-0 loss to Kilmarnock in the Viaplay Cup. It means the 22-year-old is set to be sidelined for a period and more than likely to miss the match against Rangers on September 3. Celtic will also be without Cameron Carter-Vickers, who suffered a hamstring injury against Aberdeen. There is no time frame for his return to action, but it's reported he will miss the Powder Keg September 3 showdown against Rangers. Stephen Welsh will definitely miss the match as he undergoes surgery for ruptured ankle ligaments. The youngster suffered the cruel injury just hours after signing a new deal. Yuki Kobayashi is reportedly still not yet fully fit, following an injury in pre-season. That leaves Celtic with just new boy Gustav Lagerbäck, who made his debut in the loss to Killie, and Liam Scales as options in central defence. Tomoki Iwata has previously filled in for Celtic at centre-back, and the returning Alistair Johnston, back from an ankle operation, has played for Canada in the position. Celtic are spread thin in defence after Karl Starfelt was allowed to leave for Celta Vigo, and Bosun Lowell was sent out on loan to Fleetwood Town. On Welsh, Rodgers confirmed at the weekend, "We need to get Carter Vickers back fit. I always think if you can get 4 centre-backs and some younger players in your system, that's good. Plus, we've got some players that are adaptable, like Iwata, who can go back there. It's just really unfortunate for Stephen. Right at the end of training, he landed awkwardly, and he ruptured the ligaments in his ankle, which will mean he needs an operation. That will put him out for around 3 to 4 months, which is a real shame for him, because he played really well when he came on against Aberdeen." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, August 22. Laura Muir ready to enter Lion's Den. Report by Mark Woods. Laura Muir has reason to believe. The Scot will enter the Lion's Den in Budapest tonight with the faith that she can come away with a medal from the women's 1500 metres final at the World Championships. Whether that's gold, silver or bronze, she's less sure of. Standing in her way of the top spot on the podium will be Faith Kipyegon, the defending world champion, double Olympic gold medalist and world record holder. And although Muir has hinted in the past that other rivals might not be running clean, the 28-year-old Kenyan, who's set the quickest time in history in 3 different distances this summer, has her complete respect. Said the 2022 bronze medalist, "The 2 of us have actually been in every global final since 2015 in the 1500s. So she's been there in the medals more or less every year. And then to go away and have a baby and have injuries and to come back and be on top and have that consistency as well, especially in this event, which can be so unpredictable, is just amazing. So that's why we appreciate her so much and respect her so much. You appreciate how hard it is, and she's gone out there and delivered it again and again. There's just that consistency, year after year after year, ever since she was a junior, turning up all the time, performing when it counts, at the big championships. Ultimately, the only person I ever know truly about is myself, but I can have as much faith in Faith as I can. This evening's final will provide a small slice of championship history. There's 1 athlete apiece from each of the home nations, with Muir joined by English ace Katie Snowdon, Welsh record holder Melissa Courtney, and Northern Irish number 1 Cara McGinn. McGinn, runner-up to Muir at last summer's European and Commonwealth Games, is among 6 athletes whom the Scot reckons is in the mix for silver and bronze. Expect the race to see a lightning-quick pace, she predicts, with records and personal bests set to tumble. And the British record of 3 minutes 54.50 that earned Muir Olympic silver in Tokyo primed for a rewrite. A brutal battle between a tight-knit group who know how hard this event can be. Muir continued, "On the track, it's business. Off the track, you're friends. My relationship with Cara is very similar to all the athletes as well, all 12 of those girls on the start line. I've known for years and is a really good friend. So to lose half of the semis was quite sad. I don't want more than 12 in the final, but it's nice. We see each other all the time and on the circuit. It is like a family to travel around the world together. Another podium in the stifling heat of Budapest would bring Muir's tally of major medals up to a round dozen. But after completing her mission to land a gong from every championship going at last summer's Worlds in Oregon, it's all cool now. She said, I've gone there and done it on every single stage already, and I've got nothing to lose because I've got a world medal. So it means that I can go out there and be relaxed and enjoy it, and I can probably go in there and run a little bit better. I don't have that pressure of being like, I've never won a medal at XYZ, because I have. So I can go in there and say, I've done this before. Hopefully, I can do it again. Obviously, it's incredibly hard. It took me 5 times to get that bronze medal, but we'll see how it goes. I want to be on that medal podium, but it's going to be difficult. But I'm as hungry as ever. No matter what colour they are, you always want to add to the collection. So to be a double world outdoor medalist would be really nice. Report by Mark Woods. Evening Times Sport, August 22. Rangers confirm American investor is new director of the club. Report by David Irvin. Rangers have appointed American investor John Halstead as a director of RIFC plc. The club confirmed the appointment in a statement this morning. Halstead first invested in Rangers through his family's holding company, Perron Investments LLC, in 2021. He has now been appointed to the board of RIFC plc. Halstead has over 30 years of experience in private equity and is currently based in Wyoming. He has worked as a chief investment officer, president, and managing partner at Pamplona Capital Partners, a company he founded that works across the life sciences, energy, industrial, technology, and retail sectors. Chairman John Bennett commented, as well as being a consistent investor in the club over recent years, John has provided valuable insight and support to the RIFC board and the executive management team. We look forward to benefiting yet further from his strong business acumen. A statement on the club website confirmed, Rangers Football Club today confirms the appointment of John Halstead as a director of RIFC plc. Halstead, an American investor, has over 30 years of private equity experience, currently based in Wyoming. His business interests span the United States and Europe. He was a founding partner of Pamplona Capital Partners, leading the firm to excel in global investment activities across sectors such as life sciences, energy, industrial, technology, and retail. Over his 20-year tenure there, he held pivotal roles including Chief Investment Officer, President, and Managing Partner. Prior to forming his company, he worked as an investment executive at Beacon Capital Partners and the Harvard Private Equity Group, an investment arm of the Harvard University Endowment. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Master's in Business Administration from the Harvard Business School. In 2021, he became an investor in Rangers through his family's holding company, Perron Investments LLC. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, August 22. Supercomputer predicts Celtic Rangers title race. Report by Aidan Smith. A supercomputer powered by betting expert BETSIE has predicted how the 23-24 Scottish Premiership will pan out. The supercomputer simulated Scotland's top-flight season 100,000 times. The supercomputer takes into account all match results from last season across all competitions, the pre-season results, and the current season as it progresses, projecting the season based on both pre-season expectations and goals earned both for and against during the season. As per Betsy's BETSIE's projections, Celtic are projected to win the league with an estimated total of 81.1 points, with Rangers finishing second with an estimated total of 77 points. Celtic and Rangers are tipped to be tight title race, which could go down to the final weeks of the season. Hearts, meanwhile, are projected to finish third with 53.1 points. Aberdeen and Kilmarnock are tipped to finish fourth with 44.4 points and fifth on 42.3 points, respectively. Meanwhile, St Johnstone and Dundee have been doomed to relegation, with Dundee tipped to finish bottom of the league. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, August 23. 5 Rangers talking points as side held by PSV. Report by Chris Jack. Rangers kept their Champions League dreams alive despite twice surrendering the lead during a roller-coaster playoff round clash at Ibrox. Abdallah Sima opened the scoring on the stroke of half-time to give Michael Beale's side a surprise advantage. It did not last long, as Ibrahim Sangar converted from inside the area. A Rapi Motondo effort was cancelled out by Luke de Jong's header, as these sides finished level 12 months on from their draw in Glasgow. Tie in the balance. Rangers needed to give themselves a shot at glory. The Champions League future is in their own hands, but their fate could have been clearer after this remarkable night at Ibrox. 12 months on from the stunning victory in Eindhoven, Rangers will return to the Philips Stadion, hoping that history will repeat itself. If it does, a place in the group stage will be theirs once again. Few would have given Giovanni van Bronckhorst's side a chance of achieving what they did last term after they were held to a 2-2 draw at Ibrox. That result should have been enough for PSV, and it could well be this time around, after a draw, one that was fair on the balance of play, that surely gives them the upper hand in this play-off round tie. The Dutch will take Rangers lightly at their peril though. It would be quite something if Beale's side could beat PSV on their own patch once again, but there was enough in this fixture to give them hope as they seek to raise their levels once again. Peter Bosch's side are clearly a quality outfit, and they will rightly wear the favourites tag heading into the decisive 90 minutes. Rangers have a chance though, and that is the very least they had to secure here. Showing needed to be better. The admission from Beale that Rangers would require the best performance of his tenure was honest and understandable. This was the biggest test of his managerial career, and the biggest test of the side that he has assembled this term. Rangers could have had no complaints had the first half ended goalless. There was no lack of endeavour, but there was a lack of cutting edge once again, and a low effort from Sima was the best chance of the opening half hour. At the other end, Ismail Sebari fired wide, and Johan Bakayoko stung Jack Butland's palms with a powerful drive. Like Noah Lang on the other flank, Bakayoko was a potent threat for the visitors as they dominated possession and moved the ball with more urgency. The Eredivisie outfit was so frustrated at going in behind that Captain De Jong allegedly kicked a door off its hinges after heading up the tunnel. Within a quarter of an hour, Bosch's side were level, as Sangare showed composure to rifle the ball beyond Butland. Rangers once again did the hard work by getting themselves back into the lead, but the header from De Jong saw them pegged back all too quickly for the second time. It was a case of what might have been for Rangers. This was a game that they could well have lost, but it was one that they could easily have won had the performance been more refined. Ibrox factor plays a part. The first minutes and the final seconds of the opening 45 minutes were Ibrox at its best. By the time Rangers returned to the home dressing room, they would still have been able to hear the crowd. Beale had called for a typical European night. He knows as well as anyone what impact those in the stands can have on those on the park on occasions such as this, and he needed every marginal gain he could find to help raise players. The noise from the Union Bears, back in their corner of the Broomlawn stand once again, was constant throughout. Around the ground the atmosphere ebbed and flowed with the action, and the applause at the end was appreciative. Todd Cantwell sparked a roar by winning a shy, while a flashpoint involving Ryan Jack and Lang roused tens of thousands after periods where PSV had been able to quell the decibel level. The reaction to Sima's opener was raucous and befitting of the occasion, a moment that would have lived up to the expectations of those who were experiencing it for the first time. The same can be said for the aftermath of the second Rangers goal, as Matondo brought Ibrox to its feet. Beale calls payoff. Few would have foreseen the omission of Danilo from the starting lineup. The call from Beale was a bold one, as his most expensive signing of the summer watched the biggest game of the season from the bench. Beale needed Cyril Dessers and Sima to repay his faith. With moments left of the first half, it had to be said neither had risen to the occasion, and a moment when Cantwell fired over a low cross that evaded everyone in the area brought a collective groan from a frustrated crowd. Within seconds, Sima had them roaring in celebration as he netted his second goal for the club. The 20-year-old had been an erratic performer and shown pace but no poise, as Rangers posed little threat. But a wonderful finish was quite the way to make his mark on the tie. His evening would end early as Matondo was introduced after 66 minutes in a double switch that also saw John Lundstrom take over from Ryan Jack. In both cases it was like for like from Beale, as the £6 million man stayed seated. When Matondo rolled the ball into the far corner of the net just minutes later, Beale would have been feeling chuffed with himself, as his big call, another that very few would have made, paid off in stunning style for Rangers. Danilo replaced Dessers and was denied by Walter Benitez. His decisive say in this tie could come next week instead. Tillman gets cold shoulder. The return of Tillman was naturally one of the main talking points, as Beale and Bosch conducted their respective press conferences on Monday afternoon. Just weeks after hobbling out of Hampden, as his Rangers career came to an unfortunate end, the midfielder was back in Glasgow. Beale spoke glowingly about Tillman's contribution to Rangers and his potential now that he has secured a loan switch from Munich to Eindhoven. He wished him well, but only after this tie. It was no surprise that Tillman started on the bench. His image was shown on the giant screens 8 minutes in, and a smattering of boos were audible around the stadium. The American quickly clocked that he was the reason for the reaction, and a wry smile ensured he saw the funny side of it at least. When he emerged to warm up early in the second half, Tillman was jeered by those in BF1. That was as close as he would get to the action. As the clock ticked on, it became evident that Tillman would have to wait for his debut, and the return fixture could yet give him the opportunity to silence the support who serenaded him last term. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, August 23. What Brendan Rodgers learned about Celtic first time around. Report by Johnny McFarlane. Brendan Rodgers admits you have to earn the right against SPFL clubs, as he opened up in the aftermath of defeat at Kilmarnock. Celtic were sent spinning out of the League Cup by the Ayrshire outfit, the first time Rodgers had lost a cup game across his 2 spells at Parkhead. A goal from Marley Watkins was the difference after a close game, although the visitors were perhaps unfortunate to be denied a late penalty. But reflecting on the game, Rodgers admitted his side will need to be aware of the need to win the battle before playing their football. He said, "You have to earn the right in every single game. That's what I sensed up here in my first spell, and it's no different now. Celtic are a big scalp for many clubs, and you have to go out knowing the team you're playing against will be giving that extra 5 or 10% in the game. And St Johnstone will be no different, and we have to be ready for that. I'm really happy to be at home. We've had a few games away, and Celtic Park on our first day was great, so it will be great to be back there in front of our own supporters and push on to get 3 points." Report by Johnny McFarlane. Evening Times Sport, August 23. Rugby. Hamish Watson on anxiety of awaiting Scotland World Cup call-up. Report by David Barnes. Hamish Watson has been one of the first names on the Scotland team sheet, when fit, for the last 7 years. His relentless consistency has been the hallmark of a fine international career, with 2021 a particular high point because he was named Six Nations Player of the Championship that spring and became a British and Irish Lions Test player in South Africa that summer. However, this last season, 22-23, was disrupted by a concussion suffered in November, which led to him missing the start of the Six Nations, and with Rory Darge and Luke Crosby both having made strong plays for the Scotland number 7 jersey, Watson was racked with anxiety at the start of last week as he awaited a phone call from Gregor Townsend to deliver news of Scotland's final World Cup squad selection. Watson reasoned, "The back row is always hotly contested, and that's especially the case at the moment, so I don't think anything is ever certain. So I was pretty nervous while I was waiting for the phone call, to be honest. Then, with Gregor on the phone, it is quite hard to read his tone of voice at times, so it was all pretty tense, and to eventually find out that I had made it was a great moment for me." Now, with that major hurdle safely negotiated, Watson has set his sights on making the Matchday 23 for Scotland's key pool matches against South Africa and Marseille on 10th September and Ireland in Paris on 7th October. It is very exciting to go to my second World Cup, explained Watson, who missed out on the 2015 tournament to kilted Kiwi John Hardy, who had only been in the country a few months, and then lasted only 37 minutes at the 2019 tournament in Japan. He continued, obviously 4 years ago, I picked up that knee injury and only played one game, so it was a really disappointing tournament for me personally and the team as a whole, because we did not make it to the pool stage. We are all looking for a much better experience this time around. Personally, I know I am in a battle to make the team, because Darji has done really well since coming in. He's a great player, and I think it's good for both of us to have that competition driving each other on. And Luke Crosby showed during the Six Nations that he can do a really good job at open side as well. Scotland entered the 2019 World Cup with high hopes of reaching the latter stages of the tournament, but ended up being blown away by Ireland on the opening weekend and never recovered, with another heavy defeat to Japan in the final pool match, meaning they left the party early with the tail between their legs, and calls for Gregor Townsend's resignation reverberating in their ears. However, the head coach managed to keep his job, and Watson believes that continuity can be key to this year's World Cup being a much happier experience for the boys. He continued, 4 years ago, we were in a bit of a transitional period as a squad, and it was Gregor's first World Cup, so I think he learned a lot from it, as well as the players. I think the team probably was not as well connected back then, and we maybe had a few more mini groups within the group. So I think we are now in a much better place, whether that is rugby ability-wise or off the field. I cannot comment on how everybody else feels, but I can say that the way I feel in sessions and in games is that we are a tight-knit squad and on the field, and we know exactly what we want to do now, whereas in 2019 we maybe were not as sure of the way we wanted to play, or we knew how we wanted to play but did not prepare well enough for it. Basically, we're 4 years on, and been together as a group for a long time now, and I think we've learned and grown together. Watson added that he is keen to have a hit out this weekend, so that he can be confident of being match fit and battle hardened when the team arrives in France in 2 weekends' time. And he reasoned, I found last year quite hard compared to what I was used to, which is getting 80 minutes every week. But I finished the season with Edinburgh quite well, and felt I was getting back to my best. Now I'm hoping to get some game time against Georgia, but we'll see what happens. At this point it is a case of trying to grab your opportunity when it comes along, because the squad is in a really good place, with a lot of spots which are hotly contested. Report by David Barnes. Evening Times Sport, August 24. Palmer price tag revealed. Report by David Irvin. Celtic could face stiff transfer competition to land winger Louis Palmer, according to reports. The Parkhead club have been credited with an interest in the talented Honduran 23-year-old, and it has even been claimed a move for Palmer has been launched by Celtic chiefs. However, interest in the Aris Thessalonica winger is thought to be high, with clubs around Europe and Saudi Arabia linked. And Greek outlet Sports Time reports that Palmer's club Aris are willing to sell the winger should their price tag be met. That is thought to take a bid of €5 million to tempt him to sell. The report goes on to state the figure has not yet been met by clubs from Turkey, Belgium, Greece, England or Scotland. It is, however, reported that a Saudi club has kick-started official interest in Palma over a lucrative switch to the Middle East. The player is thought to be keen on a transfer move to a more advanced foreign league, but could be swayed by a huge pay packet in Saudi. The reported Celtic interest comes after Brendan Rodgers confirmed he is still keen to bring more players to the club before the summer transfer window ends. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, August 24. Golf. Luke Donald losing sleep over Ryder Cup wildcard selections. Ryder Cup captain Luke Donald admits thinking about selecting his 6 wildcards is starting to give him sleepless nights. Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm have already secured places in Donald's side via the European points list, with Victor Hovland qualifying on the world points list. Tyrrell Hatton and Tommy Fleetwood currently occupy the other 2 spots on the world points list, with Robert McIntyre holding the 3rd and final place on the European points list, with 2 qualifying events remaining. McIntyre and Alexander Bjork will partner Donald in the first 2 rounds of this week's Czech Masters, with 3 of Donald's vice-captains tasked with assessing the performance of several other contenders. Nicolas Colsaerts will partner Pablo Larrazabal and Adrien Dumont de Charez at Albatross Golf Resort, with Eduardo Molinari playing alongside Yannick Paul and Rasmus Højgaard, and Francesco Molinari drawn with Nikolai Højgaard and Ludwig Aberg. Donald said, "I'm not sure if it was jet lag last night or lots of things building up, but I was up for a couple of hours in the middle of the night. Lots of things whirring through my head. Who I should be talking to, next steps, all that sort of stuff. It's becoming more and more as the week gets closer, a lot to digest. I'm trying to take it day by day, but it's an important week. I'm excited to be very close to finalising those 12 guys." Next week's Omega European Masters is the final qualifying event, with Donald naming his wild cards on September 4. And the former world number 1 added, "There are definitely some spots open. I was looking at the statistics this morning, and someone as low as 23rd on the European points list, if they won this week and next, still has a chance of making that top 3 on the list. All to play for, I'd say, and these guys should be chomping at the bit to show up and have some good weeks. It's great to see that commitment. It doesn't go unnoticed. Everyone in their right mind should have playing a Ryder Cup as a goal of theirs. People who have played never want to miss once they've been a part of it. Rookies want to understand how special the event is. A lot of guys who should be playing are playing this week, and I'm excited to see how the week unfolds." Evening Times Sport, August 24. Rangers draw hands Livingston financial lifeline. Report by Darren Johnson. Livingston boss Davy Martindale admits drawing Rangers in the Viaplay Cup has thrown him a financial lifeline. Martindale is desperate to cut costs, by getting the likes of Ismail Goncalves and Scott Bitsindu off the wage bill, following losses of over £800,000 last year. But if that does not happen before the transfer window closes next week, Martindale's disappointment will be tempered by knowing they will bring in around £250,000 from travelling to Ibrox for September's Cup quarter-final. He said, "Getting the draw at Ibrox gives us a wee bit of comfort that if these players do not move in the January, it's not going to have a huge dent on ourselves going forward. We can absorb those costs slightly. It takes a wee bit less pressure off us in terms of having to move 2 or 3 players on. Ideally, you want to do that, but I've not then got the other side to bring players in, because the potential cup draw money you will get is only going to help the club in terms of projected losses going forward. It shows you how big the air game was now in the last round. 4 years out of 5, we have been in the quarter-finals, and 3 out of those 4 were against Rangers, 2 at Ibrox, and the one we weren't was Ross County, where we reached the final. It's probably income you've become semi-reliant on, but you're not guaranteed. It's in the actual turnover for that end of year, but you're not guaranteeing it the following year. We lost to Dundee United last year, and it's a potentially £300,000 loss by not reaching the quarter-finals compared to the previous year. Talk of the club's financial health comes after Chairman John Ward claimed last week that potential investors were being put off by a boardroom civil war. It was also reported that an unnamed American group had a £400,000 buyout bid rejected by Livingston's holding company, Opco 6. Martindale has made it clear that investment is needed if the club is to challenge for top 6 football, especially with their Premiership rivals getting stronger. Martindale, whose team travelled to Hibs on Saturday, said, "I don't even know if it's a takeover, but we need investment. But if you go around every club, maybe Celtic is the only club in a situation where they're not looking for external investment because their business model's fantastic. Rangers directors dig into their pockets. At Aberdeen, they do that to give them a fighting budget. How much do fans put into Hearts? And then you look at Anne Budge and James Anderson. Hibs, look at what the Gordon family have done. You can go down the Premiership. I find most teams are growing and getting stronger, so that gap is getting bigger, and it's harder to bridge that gap on the finances. Hand on heart, our wage bill has gone down by £150,000 to £200,000 this year, but you still have to be competitive on the park. I would argue the top 6 have had their wage budgets going up. Having investors in the club allows them to do that, and we are fairly hamstrung in terms of our flexibility." Report by Darren Johnston. Evening Times Sport, August 24. Matt O'Reilly vows Celtic will come good. Report by Graham McGarry. Time is that most precious commodity rarely afforded to managers or players on either side of Glasgow's great football divide. Defeats at Rugby Park already this season for both Celtic and Rangers have ensured that any hint of a honeymoon period for Brendan Rodgers or Michael Beale at the start of this campaign has lasted about as long as those in your standard Kardashian marriage. Such have expectations risen even further on the back of the success over the last decade or so at Celtic, that patience is in even shorter supply for the second coming of Rodgers than during his first spell in Glasgow, no doubt exacerbated by the timing and manner of his departure. It is clear, though, that his team, judging by the evidence of the first few weeks of the season, are indeed a work in progress. Even when the results were coming in their opening 2 Premiership matches, the slick attacking football that is the hallmark of Rodgers' teams was largely absent. On Sunday there was no victory to compensate, only a shock exit from the League Cup and the loss of his perfect domestic cup record. Time and patience, then, are exactly what is required, not only for new arrivals to get up to the pace of the Scottish game, nor for the key personnel currently out injured to recuperate, particularly in the defence, where the absence of Cameron Carter-Vickers is a hammer blow, but also for the Celtic squad to get to grips with the tactical tweaks Rodgers has introduced over the summer as the players transition from edge ball to a barrage ball. Given just a little bit of a grace period though, and Matt O'Reilly is certain that everything will come good, and the midfield has asked supporters to trust the process. O'Reilly said, "It's going to take a little bit of time. We have a new manager, a new style, and lots of new players with different cultures. So it's going to take time. That's natural. Look, we'd like to improve as quickly as possible because there are big games coming up every week. But at this stage, it's always going to be a work in progress for the next couple of weeks. In the coming months, I think you'll see a much better team. I hope for good things, as I feel there is a lot of potential in the team. We're such a young group when you look at it. We have a few experienced players, which is important, but I'm 22 and feel I'm one of the older players in the team because we've signed a lot of young players. I just think that's a good thing and a strength, because young players tend to be pretty hungry coming into an environment like this. As much as there may be new faces at Celtic this season, O'Reilly is keen to stress that everyone in the dressing room fully appreciates the magnitude of the responsibility that is on their shoulders when they represent the club, and their obligation to deliver for the huge fan base that backs them. That has been hammered home by the fact that Celtic's next 2 home fixtures against St Johnstone and Dundee have already sold out, despite, with the greatest of respect, being perhaps 2 of the less sexy fixtures on their calendar. And he said, "It's amazing, very unique in that sense. I think we should all feel pretty lucky as players to be a part of that environment. For most of the players in this team, in their career, they are not going to be involved in anything like that ever again. For so-called smaller teams in the league like St Johnstone and Dundee, we are getting 60,000, and that just shows how big the club really is. I don't think people understand the magnitude of the club until they are really up here. You hear things about Celtic and Rangers being really big clubs, but until you are actually here in the city and really feel it, I don't think you can get the same sense of that. I know where I am. I think I am mature enough to recognise that playing in front of 60,000 every week is something you cannot take for granted. There are people who will never be lucky enough to do that, so I think you have to make the most of it every week. And the more people you play in front of, the more enjoyable it is. There is more energy in there, and yes, it's the most fun I have." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, August 25. Celtic boot out transfer bid for O'Reilly. Report by David Irvin. Celtic have reportedly booted out a transfer bid for Matt O'Reilly. The Scottish Sun claim Serie A side Bologna tabled an offer for the midfielder, but it was quickly rejected by Parkhead Chiefs. O'Reilly is under contract at Celtic until 2026 after his £1.5 million switch from MK Dons in January last year. However, it is claimed the Serie A side were not put off by the lengthy contract and submitted an offer for O'Reilly. Now, after the first bid was rejected, it's claimed Thiago Motta's side are weighing up whether to return with an improved figure. Bologna could reportedly face a battle for O'Reilly's signature, with a host of clubs linked with transfer swoops for the Celtic midfielder. Italian and Spanish clubs have been credited with an interest, as well as transfer possibilities elsewhere in Europe. It's also claimed that English clubs are ready to pounce with transfer bids for O'Reilly this summer. However, O'Reilly has insisted Celtic will come good this season after the exit from the Viaplay Cup to Kilmarnock, and he said he's looking forward to playing with the club. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, August 25. Ostend hoping Henderson can realise promise he showed at Celtic. Report by Aidan Smith. KV Ostend Sporting Director Nils Van Est hopes Ewan Henderson can realise the promise he showed at Celtic following his move to Belgium. The 23-year-old has left Hibs for a season-long loan at the Koosboys as they chase promotion back to the top flight. Ostend also have the option to buy the playmaker for a six-figure fee next summer. Henderson, who made the breakthrough at Celtic as a 17-year-old, has made 56 appearances for Hibs since joining in January 2022, but has only managed one outing this season. But Van Est hopes Ostend can bring out the best in Henderson, and he said, "At Celtic, Henderson was considered a very promising youngster. He showed great things, but the big breakthrough just did not come. At Hibs, which finished fourth in the last season, he played 30 times. He is a player who has to teach us the much-needed dose of creativity. With his footballing ability and insight, he should be able to create opportunities for his fellow players, so he is the type of player we absolutely need." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, August 25. PSV star vows to finish off Rangers. Report by Mark Walker. New PSV Eindhoven star Sergino Dest has vowed to finish off Rangers next week in the Champions League by linking up again with starman Noah Lang. Rangers face a tricky test in the Netherlands to reach the group stages if they are to eliminate PSV for the second year in a row after a 2-2 draw in the first leg at Ibrox. Former Barcelona ace Dest made his PSV debut after joining on loan and admitted he enjoyed playing with danger man Lang, with the two having played together for Ajax. And he believes his new side will complete the job against the Scots in Eindhoven. He said, "We were unfortunate not to get the win against Rangers, but I am confident we will get the victory we need in the home game. It was a busy time for me, but that is what modern football is all about. I would have preferred to have a little more time, so I could have adapted quicker. Usually when you join a club as big as PSV the day before the game, you don't go straight into the match of this importance. But I was grateful for the opportunity. I really enjoyed playing with Noah because we know each other from our time at Ajax. We are capable of so much more than we showed against Rangers. It is certainly an advantage that we know each other, and we are also friends off the field, which also helps. I think that we can both show even more next week against Rangers. I want to play more, develop myself and get better. Sometimes you have to make certain decisions in your career. PSV gave me the best feeling. We can definitely become champions of the Netherlands, and we know that we have to win next week because everyone wants to play in the Champions League. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, August 25. Brendan Rodgers knew he would struggle to match magical Celtic spell. Report by Graham McGarry. It was always going to be difficult for Brendan Rodgers to maintain perfection and fully emulate the glories of his first spell in charge of Celtic. Even the manager himself, though, might have thought his hitherto flawless domestic cup record would survive more than one game of his second tenure. He said after the Viaplay Cup defeat at Kilmarnock on Sunday that he would take 24 hours to grieve the result and then move on. And he appears ready to do just that, even if the loss still clearly stings just a little. Rodgers is less concerned about that first blot on his record as Celtic manager as he is about the way forward for his team, which is in something of a transitional phase following the departure of predecessor Ange Postecoglou and star performers such as Jota. But he says he was under no illusions that it would be difficult to replicate the highs of those previous magical years he spent in the Celtic Park dugout. Rodgers said, "It was clearly disappointing. My first time here, the story was just magical, but I was under no illusions. That was one of my process coming in I had to think about, knowing that when I came in the first time, how everything was, I pretty much knew it wasn't going to be like that the second time. But that's life. We have no God-given right to win every single competition. I know people will look for perfection, but it won't be that, especially this early on in the process. It was really disappointing to lose. I'd say it is very disappointing for 24 hours when you lead. Supporters and everyone else, it will hurt for longer. As the leader of the team and the guy who dictates the mood of the team, of course you have to move on, and that is what we will look to do. I know we will get better. I know the process will improve, and we push on with it." In fairness to Rodgers, his quest to deliver a ninth trophy as Celtic manager before Christmas was hampered by a rather extensive injury list, particularly at centre-back, where he is experiencing the sort of bad fortune that was rarely evident when he was previously in Glasgow. He said, "That's what I've always said. My story this time is going to be different to the last time I was here. This is something we need to adapt to now that never really happened in my first time here, but this is what we do. It is the uncertainty that injuries bring, but it also brings opportunity to other players. The guys have trained great this week, so we'll move forward." While acknowledging those injury issues, Rodgers does not see any value in heads being stuck in the sand over how bad a day at the office it was down in Ayrshire, nor is he looking to latch onto excuses such as the contentious decision not to award his side a late penalty for a clumsy tackle on Haksabanovic. He said, "It's just we were not good enough on the day." Kilmarnock's defensive game was very good. We can talk about the surface, we can talk about injuries, but the first 10 minutes we should have been 2-0 up. 2 great chances, 2 really good moves, and if we finish them off, you are in a very different place in the game. You go to them, and the opponent comes out, and then you have more space, especially surfaces like that. It is getting the first goal that is so important. So we did not manage to do that, and it put us out of the cup, and it is a strange feeling. But it just gives me even greater determination to keep improving on what we're doing. I hope over my period of time here, we have more highs than lows. On top of the emergency repairs he is seeking to carry out to his team in the last week of the transfer window, there is also a bit of housekeeping on Rodgers' agenda when it comes to some of his current star performers, with contract talks ongoing between the club and the likes of Rio Hatate and Lille Abada. He said, "I think talks over a new deal for Hatate have been ongoing from before I came in. The club and his representatives have been trying to organise that, and they will continue with that, I'm sure. Again, Abada's agent has spoken with the club, and there's dialogue at the minute. Obviously the club is in a strong position. The club has done great with a number of players. A lot of players are tied to long-term deals. Of course, they want to reward and value the players and give them the worth that they come to an agreement on. I think that's what they are doing at the minute." Hatate is currently among the numerous absentees from the Celtic squad as he nurses a calf injury, but there was at least a little positive news to report on that front, as well as some immediate relief to Rodgers' stretched resources with the recovery of Alistair Johnston. And Rodgers said, "He will be available for the squad. He's looked good over the last 11 or 12 days. We did not involve him on the Astro at Kilmarnock, but he's had another good week this week, so he will be available, which is really good news for us. Rio will be back in the international break. It was obviously his calf, but he's moving more on it now. The diagnosis is that he will be fine by the international break." Report by Graham McGarry.
Saturday the 26th of August 2023, from the sports section. Celtic 0, St Johnstone 0. Instant reaction to the burning issues. By Graham McGarry, senior sports writer. Celtic failed to score for the second consecutive game as they were held to a goalless draw by a spirited St Johnstone team at Celtic Park. The stalemate means that they are now just 1 point clear of Rangers ahead of their visit to Ibrox next week. Here are the talking points from a frustrating afternoon for Brendan Rodgers and his men. Wasteful Celtic still not firing on all cylinders. There is a very small window of grace being applied to Celtic's performances at present as the players get to grips with the tactical tweaks of their new manager, Brendan Rodgers, but as the grumbles and moans audible around Celtic Park for a large part of this game showed, the patience of the fans is finite and wearing thin. Yes, Celtic completely dominated the ball here, as you might expect, and though they often struggled to break down the blue wall standing strong along the St Johnstone box as the second half wore on, they certainly had their chances, and squandered them. Matt O'Reilly was the worst offender, twice arriving in the area with perfect timing to run onto cutbacks, but twice managing to shoot straight at Saints goalkeeper Dimitar Mitov, outstanding on the day, when he should have been bursting the net. As time ebbed away, substitute James Forrest headed over another great opportunity after Anthony Ralston's dinked cross, but the late bombardment that was expected never materialised. It is clear that there is still a long way for Celtic to go to get anywhere near the heights of the free-flowing, free-scoring team that Rodgers constructed during his first spell in charge of the club, and, after failing to find the net against Kilmarnock last week, it was another worryingly toothless display put on by the champions. It was a highly unfamiliar centre-back pairing for Celtic here, in the shape of new arrival Gustav Lagerbielke and out-of-favour Liam Scales, who spent last season out on loan to Aberdeen. Injuries to Cameron Carter-Vickers, Mike Navroki and Stephen Welsh handed the duo an opportunity and, although this was hardly the sternest examination of the defensive abilities, St Johnstone forward Luke Jeffcott ploughed a rolling furrow to little effect before being replaced by Stevie May. There were one or two moments of real concern. On the ball, both were fine. Lagerbielke, in particular, showcased his ability to play a forward pass, trying to get the ball into the feet of the advanced midfielders and Kyogo Furuhashi whenever he could. Defensively, though, they looked suspect. The first real scare came with 20 minutes to go, as Scales found himself twisted inside and out by Dara Costello, the St Johnstone attacker only being denied a stunning opener by a sharp reflex save by Joe Hart. Then, late on, Scales was again too weak in allowing J. Turner Coot to carve out a cross before Lagerbielke got caught the wrong side of May, Hart again saving the day. A far sterner test awaits next week, of course, when Rodgers takes his men across Glasgow to face Rangers, and he will hope to have reinforced this now threadbare area of his team before then through the transfer market. If he doesn't, the Rangers forwards may be licking their lips. Alistair Johnston return provides a positive. The Canadian right-back has been a big miss for Celtic during his time in the sidelines through injury, and he showed why here as he lasted an hour in his comeback. He was unlucky not to have an assist or two to his name as well, teeing up Kyogo to flash just wide in the half volley in the first half, and then putting the ball on a silver platter for O'Reilly, who couldn't convert. With the ineffective Dies and Maeda constantly looking to cut inside, Johnson provided the width that Celtic were badly needing, and had he been able to last the pace, he may well have made the difference. In what was a hugely frustrating afternoon for Celtic, it was Hyun Yang making his first start for the club on the left wing that looked likeliest to provide a spark in the final third, particularly in the first half against the deep-lying Saints defence. The South Korean was full of direct running and trickery, giving the St Johnstone right-back Oldare Olafunwa a tough time of it and getting crosses into the area that he may have expected teammates to be getting on the end of. When he did pick out David Turnbull 12 yards out, the midfielder skied the ball over. Yang blazed another good opening for himself over the bar too, and then rather faded from the game after the interval, eventually being replaced by James Forrest with around 25 minutes to go. He showed enough here in flashes though to suggest that he might be a useful addition to the Celtic attack once he's fully up to speed, and provide some much needed creativity against packed defences. St Johnstone would have been viewed as mere cannon fodder by the vast majority of those who rolled up to Celtic Park expecting a demolition, but Stephen McLean's struggle showed they might not be such soft touches after all, with a doughty display of defending. It was out with the old and in with the new, as 8 summer signings lined up and 3 debutants took their place in the team for what, on paper, should be the most daunting fixture on their calendar. Yes, they were helped by the wastefulness of Celtic and an accomplished display by impressive keeper Mitov, but these factors are a given for any provincial side to get a result in Glasgow. What they also had was a willingness to dig in and fight for one another, and, aided by fine displays from Sam McClelland in defence and Daniel Phillips in midfield, they will feel they deserve the reward. And that article was by Graham McGarry. Saturday the 26th of August, from the sports section. Michael Beale salutes incredible James Tavernier Rangers strike. Article by Johnny McFarlane. Michael Beale has opened up on the incredible quality provided by Captain James Tavernier to score the crucial second in a 2-0 win over Ross County. His side defeated the Highlanders in a hard-fought match after a Kemar Roof volley put them in front before the Tavernier thunderbolt. The English striker was starting his first game in a year and really showed what the Ibrox side had been missing with an intelligent, dangerous showing. Rangers looked on easy street after an excellent first half, but the second was much more competitive thanks to a spirited reaction from Malcolm Mackay's team, who went man for man in their marking. And Ibrox's boss was thankful to see his right-back step up to the plate so dramatically once again, while he also picked out Roof for special acclaim. He said, "I'm delighted for Kemar Roof. We live with him every day, and we know how frustrated he's been the last few months. I thought it was a fantastic finish off the corner, and James scored an incredible goal. Roof, looked incredibly sharp all through pre-season. His goals per game record in this league and for Rangers is fantastic, so that's a big boost for us. Both Kemar and Tom bring us so much experience. We need these types. It's a completely different type of game and challenge. We are just happy to get through this with a win and no injuries, and it gives us a day or a couple of days now to really focus on that, give our best effort, and we go over there looking to take the game to Eindhoven." The Englishman also refused to add to reports of a move to Israel for Yanis Hadji. "Nothing on that," he added. "We have a really big squad, so naturally one or two might look to go and get football, whether it's one of the two younger ones or it's been reported Glenn Kamara might move, and he's not been involved. Yanis we have been speaking about missed out on the squad today. As the week goes, something could happen, but as it stands now it will be more outs than ins for sure." And that article was by Johnny McFarlane.
Andrew Whale, 25th of November 1940 to the 18th of August 2023. Following a short illness, we are saddened to advise of the passing of Andrew Whale, husband to Margaret, father to Stephen and Matthew. But to those of us at Cune Review Print Speaking to the Blind, Andrew was a mainstay of our reading team. Born in London and the former Director of Library Services at the University of Glasgow, it was his membership of Campsie Parish Church and wider church community that meant he and Margaret could ensure local people living with sight loss heard about our daily talking newspaper podcasts. Moore Mackay, our former Director of Operations, said today, "His command of language and lovely voice was a joy for me and our listeners." Morag went on to say that she valued his unfailing willingness to help, his constant courtesy and patience with her. This must have been a real trial at times. Over lockdown, he learned a raft of new skills to keep the service going. Alistair McPhee, our managing editor, said, "While our volunteer readers are now loving the convenience of reading from home, one of my biggest regrets is not seeing team members in person each week. The friendship that Margaret and then Andrew offered me over many years will not be forgotten." Andrew was the newbie reader of the Whale family team, and I especially loved the interactions between Margaret and Andrew in the studio corridor. Margaret being the boss and passing on her digital recording and microphone technique to her apprentice, Andrew. Margaret would usually finish first, meaning I got to spend time with her for a coffee and a blether until Andrew came out of the studio, never understanding why Margaret always finished first. Far be it from me to imply that the boss had got him to do the longer articles, or even worse, the more complicated names. Obviously, far more likely was that Margaret's years of experience as an English teacher before joining around 20 years ago as a key team member was the real reason. Over 10 years ago, when we were looking for voices to record the members' magazine for the charity English Heritage, there was only one team that Morag was going to approach to be the core of the project. We so appreciated their commitment, ensuring there were no mistakes and little editing to be done. Andrew was one of the first team members to sign up as lockdown started to record from home. Andrew and Margaret joined Roddy, our lockdown producer, in learning yet more digital recording techniques through online training sessions. With Andrew's passing, Margaret has indicated that she will also retire. a sentiment we understand and appreciate. Our listeners and your colleagues will miss you both.
Evening Times Sport, August 28. Dutch legend insists Rangers cannot play football. Report by Mark Walker. Dutch World Cup legend Wim van Hanegem insists Rangers cannot play football ahead of their Champions League second leg showdown. But he reckons PSV Eindhoven could shoot themselves in the foot by insisting on building from the back when the sides meet in the playoffs. PSV have been criticised in their homeland media despite claiming a 2-2 draw at Ibrox, and they are desperate to avoid a repeat of last year's clash at the same stage where they lost 1-0 at home to go out of the prestigious tournament to Rangers. And Van Hanegem, who won 3 titles, a European Cup and a UEFA Cup with Feyenoord as a player, and 1 title as manager, and was also a World Cup runner-up with the Netherlands, reckons it would be suicide if PSV continue their policy of passing the ball out from the back. He said, "By now we know that Rangers cannot play football. But within a year PSV have played them 3 times and failed to beat them once. I am curious to discover if PSV will again field a player facing their own goal again. They call it building from the back. The keeper plays a ball to a defender with someone right on him, and the ball eventually gets yanked forward anyway." After the game at Ibrox, Joey Veerman said Rangers could only shoot balls into the stands. But a year ago, he said Rangers won despite not having a single shot on target too, and that it was unfair PSV were only in the Europa League. This is a game for the riches of the Champions League, and PSV are giving goals away all because they are keen to show they can play football. They pass out from the back, and swarms of Scots attack them. It's the wrong way to play against Rangers. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, August 28. Rugby. Heriots jump to second in Super Series Championship. Report by Stuart Bathgate. Heriots went second in the Super Series Championship thanks to a 45-14 home win over the Future 15, but they only prevailed after a spirited effort saw the visitors go in at the break 7-5 ahead. The Future 15 have now lost all 4 of their games to date, but this one was at least a far more honourable defeat than the 92-14 loss they suffered at the hands of Stirling Wolves a week ago. Heriots are now second in the table, just ahead of champions Watsonians, who suffered their first defeat of the season last Friday night when they went down 21-7 at Stirling. The visitors had most of the pressure in the first half, but could only score once, and after the break the Wolves took control. Stirling head coach Eddie Pollock said, "We could easily have been 21-0 down, but in fact were 7-0 down. The defence was incredible. We have a really strong set piece, and that eventually won the game." Watsonians coach Nicky Walker accepted his team had failed to adapt their game plan after their first half dominance had yielded just that single score, and he said, "We made too many errors. We're not going to win every week playing expansive rugby and playing pretty. We have to learn how to win ugly." Ayrshire Bulls are still clear at the top of the table after their 48-7 win at Boroughmuir Bears on Friday night. Although they briefly fell behind in the first half, the visitors were 24-7 up by the break and had little trouble in wrapping up the bonus point victory. Bulls assistant coach Fraser Climo said, "We were really happy with the way we controlled the tempo. It was just about sticking to our structures, being patient with ball in hand, and relying on our big boys to go through the middle. Report by Stuart Bathgate. Evening Times Sport, August 28. Oh, Celtic injury latest. Report by Mark Walker. Jurgen Klinsmann revealed injured Celtic striker O has assured him he will be fit to play for South Korea in their upcoming games, despite suffering from a calf knock that was expected to keep him out for another month. And Hoop's colleague Yang could be set to win his first cap for his country as they prepare for friendlies at the start of next month. The Hoops striker suffered an injury setback in a pre-season friendly against Atletico Bilbao at the start of the month, and it was reported he would be missing for 6 weeks. However, he has surprisingly been named for South Korea's upcoming double-header of friendlies in the UK when they play Wales in Cardiff and Saudi Arabia in Newcastle. And former German boss Klinsmann revealed O declared himself fit for the encounters. He said, O is on the list because he indicated to me he will be fit enough to play in both of the games. Yang is also included in the squad and will be hoping to win his first cap. He was previously in the squad for a friendly against Iceland last year, but has yet to play. Parkhead teammate Kwon was selected for South Korea's under-22 squad for their triple-header of games against Qatar, Kyrgyzstan and Myanmar. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, August 28. Louis Palmer set for iconic Celtic number. Report by Ewan Payton. Louis Palmer is reportedly set for an iconic Celtic shirt number. The 23-year-old is on the verge of completing his £3.5 million move from Aris in Greece. The fee has been agreed between the clubs, and the Honduran's arrival is expected to be imminent ahead of a busy transfer deadline week for Brendan Rodgers. And upon the deal being signed, sealed and delivered, Diario Diaz reports that Palmer will be handed the number 7 jersey. It's claimed that the winger has originally requested to wear number 17. However, fellow summer signing Make No Rocky has already picked that number. So it seems Palmer will wear number 7, which was vacated by Georgios Giacomakis in January when he joined Atlanta United. It's a famous number for the Hoops. Club legends such as Henrik Larsson, Jimmy Johnson and Kenny Dalglish have all represented that kit. Palmer is expected to be officially announced as a new Celtic signing tomorrow, with a medical taking place in London today. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, August 28. Steve Clarke names Scotland squad. Report by Aidan Smith. Scotland manager Steve Clarke has named a 25-man squad for next month's international double-header. Scotland will face Cyprus in Larnaca in a crucial UEFA Euro 2024 qualifier on Friday, September 8, before taking on England in a special 150th anniversary heritage match at Hampden on Tuesday, September 12. Scotland secured back-to-back victories over Norway and Georgia in the last camp in June to maintain a 100% record in Group A. Scott McKenna makes a welcome return after missing the past 2 camps through injury, while Che Adams is also back from injury to bolster the forward line. There is also a first call-up at senior level for Newcastle United attacking midfielder Elliot Anderson, who has previously represented the under-21s. The Scotland squad is goalkeepers Zander Clark Hearts, Angus Gunn Norwich City, Liam Kelly Motherwell. Defenders Jack Hendry Al Ettifaq, Aaron Hickey Brentford, Scott McKenna Nottingham Forest, Nathan Patterson Everton, Ryan Porteous Watford, Andy Robertson Liverpool, John Souttar Rangers, Kieran Tierney Real Sociedad. Midfielders Elliot Anderson Newcastle United, Stuart Armstrong Southampton, Billy Gilmour Brighton, Lewis Ferguson Bologna, Ryan Jack Rangers, John McGinn Aston Villa, Callum McGregor Celtic, Kenny McLean Norwich City, Scott McTominay Manchester United. Forwards Che Adams Southampton, Ryan Christie Bournemouth, Lyndon Dykes Queen's Park Rangers, Kevin Nisbet Millwall, Lawrence Shankland Heart of Midlothian. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, August 28. Cantwell reveals Rangers' intention. Report by Aidan Smith. Todd Cantwell has opened up on the importance of sending a message out to Celtic at the end of last season. Ange Postecoglou's hoops were dominant domestically and sailed to an historic treble, with their rivals Rangers going the campaign without landing any silverware. With this in mind, Cantwell admits it was hugely important for Rangers to grab 3 points in dominant fashion in the final derby clash of the season to send a message ahead of the new campaign. He told Tubes and Ange Golf Life, "It was mental. Unfortunately, they got the better of us in the semi-final of the Cup and in the league at theirs. We needed to play well at home and won for the fans, but also send a message for next year. We managed to do that and win 3-0. That's certainly the intention. We've got targets set by the manager, set by the players, and we've got our own standards as well. They're all aligned for a successful year." On the match day atmosphere and in the build-up, Cantwell continued, "It's mental, to be honest. Hearing about it and being in it are two different things. Being there and being engrossed in the atmosphere is quite incredible. The word electrifying comes to mind. In games like that, it means so much to so many people at both ends, and you can really feel that when you're down there. 2 or 3 weeks before, the media are asking you questions about it. As a new lad, sometimes you can get tripped up by the media on that. It's only 2 games in, and they're talking about that already. It's a big rivalry, there's no hiding that. More times than others, it's us two going at all the trophies and the league. To play in those games, it's got huge importance. Everyone at the club who's been there for a while is making sure you're aware of that." Report by Aidan Smith.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q&Review and to tell your friends about our service.